Alright, everyone. So, last lesson before this week's test. Then we have 2 reviews. I hope that I gave you enough practice problems on these word problems. If not, let me know and I can try and find you guys some more. There's nothing on Khan Academy that I could find. So, well, anyway, okay, we'll start this off. And for this one, I'll be typing in Microsoft Word because I need to make an answer key because there isn't one. So I'm making my answer key as I'm teaching it to you guys, and I'll upload this as the key. Okay. So first, let's read this first problem. Okay, it says Jamie, Stacy, and Paul. Oh my God, there's no Oxford comma. Okay, the Oxford comma is so important. If you don't include it, I find it very upsetting. If anyone wants to know why I care about the Oxford comma so much, please feel free to ask in the discussion board, and I'll give you some great examples. I won't do it right here, so we're not too distracted. Jamie, Stacy, and Paul can paint a room together in 2 hours. If Stacy does the job alone, she can paint the room in 5 hours. If Paul works alone, he can paint the room in 6 hours. If Jamie works alone, how long will it take her to paint the room? So let's first think about this, just the basic, very, very basic way, okay? They can all paint together in 2 hours. So Jamie plus Stacy plus Paul equals what? 2. That's what you might want to do. You want to say Jamie plus Stacy plus Paul all together is 2. But then if you substitute the values that we have, something bad happens, right? Stacy alone is 5 hours. Well, so if that's 5, how are all these adding to 2? That doesn't make any sense, right? And it doesn't make any sense that if all of them do it in 2 hours and Stacy takes longer at 5 hours, how are these going to add to 2? Okay? So what I want you to understand here is that's not the way we do it. Okay, the temptation is going to be just add everything together, but it doesn't make sense. But we do something similar, okay? Instead, we think of this in rooms per hour, okay? So all together, they can do 1 room in 2 hours, okay? So this is 1 room, 2 hours. And for each of these characters, we're going to put in how many rooms they could do per hour. So Stacy is 5 hours. She can paint the room in 5 hours. So she can do 1 room. Oops, hold on. Let's put this here. 1 room in 5 hours. And Paul can paint the room in 6 hours. So Paul can do 1 room in 6 hours. And we want to know Jamie. Okay? So the question for Jamie is, Jamie can do what? Jamie can do 1 room in J hours. Okay? So that's how you set it up. So notice it's the same idea. We're doing like J plus S plus P equals 2, but we're flipping them all with those numbers for their hours on the denominator. Okay? This does not work. This does not work if you do flip all these fractions and make it hours over room. If you do J hours per room and 5 hours per room and 6 hours per room is equal to 2 hours per room, that's just what we did before. That's just J plus 5 plus 6 equals 2, and it turns out to Jamie negative hours to do a room. It doesn't work. The time has to be on the bottom. These are called rate problems, okay? So when you see anything with rates about how much time it takes, then you know that time needs to be on the bottom. We're adding everything together, okay? And I don't know what other kinds of situations might come up on the test, but all of these are time examples on your review, your final review 10 for Chapter 8. There is a one that does not involve time, hours. I suspect that many of you will get stuck on that, so if you do get stuck, feel free to ask on the discussion board, and I'll work through it with you in detail, okay? But I want you guys to try and figure out, because it's an interesting problem, you know? Okay, so next step, let's just get rid of all these labels. Okay, so my equation is now 1 over j plus 1 over 5 plus 1 over 6 equals, actually, you know what, I'm gonna leave these here because these are the guided notes that you guys will use for reference. So I want to make sure that you have all the work. Okay, so this is 1 over j now plus 1/5 plus 1/6 equals 1/2. And now the easiest way to solve this is to multiply everything by 30. If I multiply everything by 30, I now have 30 over, oops, well, that was terrible. 30 over j plus 6 plus 5 equals 15. How did I get those numbers? Well, if I multiply 1 over j by 30, that's 30 over j. 30 over 5, 30 divided by 5 is 6. 30 over 6 is 5. And 30 over 2 is 15. Okay? Now let's just add things together. So I have 30 over j plus 11 equals 15. Subtract the 11 on both sides. So I have 30 over j equals 4. And so if I multiply both sides, I have 30 equals 4j, which means j equals 30 over 4, which is, what is 30 divided by 4 is 7.5. 7.5. So we actually, does it make sense? Logically, yes, right? What would not make sense is if we got a number that was less than 2. Because all three of them together take 2 hours. So it wouldn't make sense that if Jamie helps out, it would take more time than if Jamie could do it alone. So if you get a number that's bigger than the time when they all work together, then you're in a good place. Okay, everything is going good then. This is, how are you doing on this recording? Okay, about 7 minutes in. Alright, so let's do, so this is our, oops. This is our answer right here. Do that in blue and bold it. So let's do the next problem. We have Myra takes 2 hours to plant 500 flower bulbs. Francis takes 3 hours to plant 450 flower bulbs. Working together, how long should it take them to plant 1,500 bulbs? So we got Myra plus Francis, okay, equals some total. And that total is going to be 1,500 bulbs per some number, how long it takes, which we'll do as t for time. Okay, so let's replace Myra with how fast Myra goes. Well, Myra does 500 bulbs in 2 hours, and Francis does 450 bulbs. Bulbs is kind of a weird word, isn't it? In 3 hours. So this is the setup for our problem. Okay, maybe here I should have done an extra step. J plus S plus P equals time, we'll say, or yeah. Let's do that. Plus equals T, and for this one, let's have an extra step in here for the people who can't watch the video of M plus F equals T. There we go. I hope that makes sense as a first step and isn't too big of a transition. Well, let's simplify some things. I'm going to get rid of the bulbs, that unit. Just get rid of the units, okay? We know we're looking for time. And simplify. 500 divided by 2 is 250. So I have 250 plus 450 divided by 3 is 150 equals 1,500 over t, right? Add these together. 250 plus 150 is 400. So I have 400 equals 1,500 over t. And if you multiply both sides by t, we have 400t equals 1,500, which means t is equal to 1,500 over 400, which is 3.75. Oh, there we go. Hours. Should have put hours here too. That was hours. This is hours. Okay, everyone's happy. So, does that make sense logically? That's what you have to ask yourself. Every time you finish one of these problems, ask yourself, does this answer make logical sense? Okay. Well, Myra takes 2 hours to plant 500 flower bulbs, not light bulbs. You don't plant light bulbs. We're gonna have 1,500. Well, so let's triple this, right? 500 times 3 is 1,500. 2 times 3 is 6. So it would have taken Myra alone 6 hours to do this job. Francis, right? 450 times 3 isn't exactly 1,500, but it's pretty close. Okay, let's just do it. So this times 3 is 1,500-ish, which would take 3 times 3 hours or 9 hours. So it would take Francis 9 hours and Myra 6 hours separately to do this job. So if it takes them 6 and 9 hours respectively to do the job separately, does it make sense that if they combine their forces, they could do it in 3.75? Yeah, it makes sense, right? Because at least it's smaller. Just keep an eye out for when the number's bigger. If you get something where, if it said something like, it takes 10 hours. Well, if Myra takes 6 hours to do it by herself, why would it take 10 hours with Francis's help? Okay, keep an eye out for those situations. That's when you know you've done something wrong. Okay. One pipe can fill a pool 1.5 times faster than a second pipe. If both pipes are open, the pool can be filled in 6 hours. If only the slower pipe is open, how long would it take to fill the pool? Okay, so for this one, we got P1, which is pipe 1, and P2, which is pipe 2, and together they give us our time. Okay? And what we know is that together it takes them 6 hours. So we do one pool in 6 hours. That's what they're going to add up to. And one pipe can fill a pool 1.5 times faster than the second pipe. Okay? So that means that, let's say that this is if this is 1.5, pipe 1 is 1 times faster, then pipe 2 is 1.5 times slower, right? So we're going to write this as 1 over pipe 1 time plus 1 over, and we're not going to write, okay, let's do this pipe 2, okay? So 1 over pipe 1 plus 1 over pipe 2 is going to give me, I should have this pool, and these two rates together is going to add up to be this time. And what we know is that, I'm going to copy and paste this so I have to write the whole thing. We know one of the pipes is 1.5 times faster than the second pipe. So let's represent that. Pipe 1 is 1.5 times faster. So that means that if we do pipe 2 times 1.5, or pipe 1 times 1.5, we'll get to pipe 2, right? So let's rewrite this. Instead of P2, we write it as 1.5 P1. So in other words, what I'm saying is this pipe 2 is 1.5 times slower than pipe 1. So if I take pipe 1 and I multiply by 1.5, that's the same thing as pipe 2. That's why I put that there. I hope that makes sense. If not, ask on discussion board and let's go over it. So let's let's figure out these numbers. So I have 1 over P1 plus 1 over 1.5 P1 equals 1 over 6. Okay? So if I want to solve this problem, I think the smart thing is to just multiply everything by P1 here. So I'll multiply everything by P1. I now have 1 over 1, right? plus 1 over 1.5 equals P1 over 6. That's when, so I multiply everything by P1. Now I can add these together easily, right? Because 1 over 1.5, if we multiply this by 2, it's 2/3, right? Let's go ahead and give these some common denominators. Let's multiply my first fraction by 3, so it's 3/3, plus let's multiply the second fraction by 2, so it's 2/3 equals P1 over 6. So now I have 5/3 equals P1 over 6. And so if I multiply both sides by 6, I now have P1 equals 30 over 3, which is 10. Okay? And then we also know from before, P2 is equal to 1.5 times P1, because it's the slower pipe, which is 1.5 times 10, which is 15. So does this make sense? Together they can do it in 6 hours. So does it make sense that if we took a 10-hour fill plus a 15-hour fill, they could together do it in 6? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we're good on that one. Tanya and Cam, on this problem on eCampus, the wording is off right here. I fixed it on this key right here. Actually, you know what? It looks like I'm not actually. Gotta make sure I say this is key that I'm working on. Okay, so if Tanya and Cam each clean a car and vacuum its interior in 2 hours, Pat needs 3 hours to do the same job by himself. If they all work together, how long would it take them to clean the car together? So I have T plus C plus P equals, oh, you know what? Equals time. Well, I'll just do this X this time. Okay, X equals time. It's annoying when someone has a T name because then I can't use it here. All right, anyway. So we know that Tanya can clean a car in 2 hours. So Tanya is 1 car per 2 hours, plus what's Cam? Cam is also 1 car per 2 hours. And I'm not putting spaces between the numbers and units, by the way, because otherwise it messes up the fractions. I have to go back and adjust things, and I'd rather just make things smooth. You guys can tell that there should be a space there. And then Pat needs 3 hours. So Pat is 1 car per, oops. See, that's what happens if you put a space. 1 car per 3 hours. And that is going to be equal to, we don't know, in 1 car over X. You know, how long does it take them all together to do this job? So if I do the math on this, it's now just 1/2, oops. I'm hitting the wrong key. 1/2 plus 1/2 plus 1/3, 1/3 equals 1 over X. And if you do that math, I think the best thing to do here is to multiply everything by 6. So if I do that, and I'll have 6 halves, which is 3 plus 2 equals 6 over X. Add those together, I have 8 equals 6 over X. And so if I multiply, I have 8x equals 6. And one more step, x equals 6/8, which is 3/4 or 0.75. So Tanya and Cam, it takes them each 2 hours to do it. It takes Pat 3 hours to do it. And if you put all 3 of their powers together, like Captain Planet, it only takes 0.75 hours. Have I been... Hours. Be thorough. Hours. Okay. I don't know why this whole thing is Did I highlight at some point? I don't think I did. No color. Text effects. Right, this is the text highlight. Huh. I don't know why that's gray. I'll have to figure that out before I post it finally. Anyway. Alright, so last one, I have Joe and Bill. Joe plus Bill. They're planning to build a house, paint a house together. Bill thinks if he worked alone, it would take him 4 times as long as it would take Joe to paint the entire house. Working together, they can complete the job in 24 hours. How long would it take each of them working alone to complete the job? So Joe plus Bill is equal to time. So if I do this, I say 1 over 1 paint per Joe hour plus 1 paint per Bill hour equals 1 paint per 24 hours. Okay? And the extra piece of information we have is that Bill thinks it takes him 4 times as long as it would take Joe to paint the entire house. So if that's the case, then we know Bill is 4 times Joe. So I can, instead of saying B, I can say B is equal to 4J. Okay? That means Bill is 4 times Joe's time. So if we take Joe's time, multiply by 4, we get to Bill's time. Oops. And so if I do the substitution, I now have 1 over J plus 1 over 4J equals 1 over 24. So the easiest way to do this is to take our first fraction, multiply by 4. So I have 4 over 4J plus 1 over 4J equals 1 over 24. And if I add these, now these have common denominators, so I can do 5 over 4J equals 1 over 24. Right. And if we cross multiply here, I have 5 times 24, which is 120, right? 5 times 2 is 10, 5 times 4 is 20, so 120 equals 4J. So J equals 120 divided by 4 is going to be 30 hours. And if we know that Joe is 30 hours, remember it says Bill takes 4 times as long. So we know that Bill is equal to 4 times Joe's hours, which is 4 times 30, which is 120 hours. And that may seem like a lot, but it makes sense in this context because remember, Joe can do it in 30 hours. Together they do it in 24 hours. So in other words, Bill isn't adding much, right? Bill is is contributing much less to the work than Joe is, okay? So that's why that makes sense. Again, the big thing to keep in mind is if either of these numbers were less than 24, that should be a red flag because it would make sense that either of them could do it faster alone than if they worked together. Okay? So that's all for that. After this, you just have 2 reviews and then you have your test on Friday. So I hope you guys have a great week before we start trigonometry. Boo-hoo. And I'll talk to you later.